So the first tool that we are going to look at is the Porter's value chain. So Porter's value chain, most organizations engage in hundreds or even thousands of activities in the process of converting input to the output. These activities can be classified into value adding and non-value adding activities. A company should undertake only those activities that add value to the customer and avoid all activities that doesn't add value to the customer. See, normally what companies do is they think themselves as departments. So they have production department, marketing, HR, finance, distribution, warehouse. So they usually think in terms of department mentality. But what Porter says is a company should view itself as a bundle of activities. So a company is nothing but there are like so many activities which are being created or done, and the purpose of all the activities is to help sell the product to the customer or meet the needs of the product. So every activity actually incurs a cost, right? Every something like a marketing, production or HR, every activity adds some kind of a cost to the company. So what Porter says is only do activities which are value adding and don't do any activities which are not adding any value to the final customer. So that's what Porter says. By avoiding all the non-value adding activities, that the company reduces the cost and effort. So the time is minimized and also the cost is minimized, thus reducing the cost compared to the competitors. So assuming that the competitors are not following value chain and our company does, our cost goes down because we are not doing the unnecessary non-value adding activities. Thus the company can have a lower cost structure. So our cost structure of our entire company will be lower when compared to the competitor. So what is the benefit of doing this? Now it can now either reduce the price, okay, as their cost is lower, they can reduce the price and capture more market share. So when compared to other companies, we can reduce the price and capture more market share, or it can have the same price as the competitor and earn a higher margin on the product. So we can charge the same price as our competitor and also earn a higher profit when compared to our competitor. So we have two choices now. So we'll have an example like this. So we'll have like two restaurants or two outlets as an example, food outlets as an example. We'll have an ordinary restaurant and we also have McDonald's value perceived by the customer and the actual McD's cost. Okay. So the normal cost of running a restaurant is something like which is similar to a McDonald's is like this. Okay. So we have like features. So on one side we have the feature. So the cost incurred for quality procurement, visible cooking area, cleanliness of staff, quick ambience, quick service, ambience, cost of the burger, selling price of the burger and profit per burger. It's a fast food outlet, okay, which sells the burgers. For them, in each of the area, they are going to spend 10 rupees. So the cost of the burger comes to 50. As they want to make some profit, they sell at 70. They make a profit of 20. Okay. See, when a customer goes and buys at McD, he feels that his perceived value, okay, it's not the actual cost. He feels that the burger should be paid 20 rupees minimum, because for the quality he is willing to pay 20 because he could look at the cooking area, he could see that he can see that it's very clean, very neat. Because for the staff, okay, for the staff's cleanliness, he is like willing to pay another 20. For the very quick service, he is actually paying another 20. The ambience is good, so he might be willing to pay another 20. So a total of 100 he might be willing to pay for the burger. So the cost of the burger should be like 140 and the company will make something like 40. But the answer is the actual cost which is being incurred. See, this is the perceived value. The customer feels that he can even give 20 rupees for quality, okay, but the actual cost to McD is only 10. So if you multiply if you add all the service cost, that comes only to 50. So the customer is willing to pay 140 and he will also pay it. So the price that he will pay is 140, but the actual cost is only 50. So 90 will be the McD's profit. So the logic is this amount the customer is willing to pay or he pays, okay. So that comes to 100. The company can easily sell at 140. So but their actual cost is only 50. So the profit that the company makes is 90. So can you compare this? So McD's profit when compared to an ordinary food outlet profit is hugely different. Okay, this is only for an illustration purpose. In reality, it might differ a bit. So assume that all the companies in the industry are selling some product at 100 rupees. Okay, this 100 rupees incurs a cost and non-valuing activity. Okay, so the cost is spent for things which add value to the customer and the things which are not adding value to the customer. So their cost comes to 80 and the company can earn a profit of 20. There's a company which finds out that the non-value adding activity is around some 30 rupees. So the only value adding activity that the company does is for 50 rupees. See, now company A has two choices. Either charge same price as competitors. So all other companies are charging 100, this company also charges 100, but they are only doing the value adding activities, so there is only 50 rupees of it. So 100 minus 50 comes to 50. So the profit that this company can make is 50. Another option is lower the price. For example, they can lower their price to how much? See, they can lower price without incurring a loss. So their actual cost is only 50 because they have cut down all the non-value adding activities and costs. So this company can effectively reduce their price even to 50, but other companies in the industry cannot reduce below 80. So that's a kind of a problem for them. So because of using this strategy, this company's sales will be higher. They can capture the market easily. At one point of time, they can slowly buy out their other competitors also. So what is this value chain? Okay, so Porter says that the company should divide itself on the basis of some activities. So these are called as a primary activity and these are called as a support activity. So primary activities are like inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and service. And supporting activities we have procurement, technology development, human resource management, and firm infrastructure. So here we will see the activities in detail. So primary activities relate directly to the physical creation, sale, maintenance, and support of a product or service. They consist of the following. So inbound logistics can be referred to as the movement of goods from the supplier's end to your place. So you transport it, you receive it, you store it, you sort it, okay, you quality check it, and then you distribute the products internally to your company. So these are the activities which come under inbound logistics. So how can you add value here? You can have an effective quality checking process. You can buy very good raw materials. You can buy certified raw materials. You can tell your customers, yes, we are buying very good raw materials. You can have a look at it. So these are the ways in which you can add value through inbound logistics. Then is the operations. These are the transformation activities that change inputs into outputs that are sold to customers. Here your operation systems create value. So it's usually like production. If you take in the example of McDonald's, so McDonald's conversion of the raw material, the buns, the patty, the potato, and the stuffings like that, they convert into a burger. So that is the kind of operations they do. So how can they add value here? They can wear a headgear. Okay, they can look clean. The employees should look clean. The operation or the cooking area is like visible to the visitors or to the guests. So in this manner, we can add value to the production. So outbound logistics. So outbound logistics, these activities deliver your product or service to your customer. These are things like collection, storage, distribution, and they may be internal or external to your organization. So we'll take McDonald's. So how can McDonald's do their outbound logistics? See, it is about the product reaching to the customer's hand. So in what ways can McDonald's make their product reach to you, to a customer? If it's a fast food outlet, you go, you order, and you take it. That is a kind of outbound logistics. Or they can also have like a hotel kind of setup where the server comes and he asks your order and then he gives you the burger. That can be a second model. Or a third model is like you come in a car, you give an order and you take away. That can be a third model. Or fourth, something like food delivering apps. So it's something like Swiggy, Zomato. Through that, you order something from McDonald's and quickly they come and deliver. So these are the ways in which the burger reaches your hand. So marketing and service is like very direct. Okay, the company has to market promotions, campaigns. So that's about the marketing. Services, after the sale of the product, what kind of service we are going to do. So if you take something like you buy a television, okay, the warranty and guarantee that comes with your television is a service. Okay, if you take McDonald's, they give you a small toy or some kind of small cap so that you can wear. So these are like memorable. So that is a kind of a post purchase service. Okay, so post after the sale, any service that the company does is called as a post purchase service. So now we'll move on to the support activities. So if you see the diagram, if you see this diagram, there is a slight dotted line which goes up to human resource management here. See, all of them go for. So what does this mean is procurement is done across all the primary activities, right? Procurement is purchasing. Purchasing has to be done for inbound logistics. We purchase raw material. For operations, we purchase machinery. For outbound logistics, we might buy some delivery van. Okay. Or for marketing, we purchase the space in a television ad. In service, we buy some kind of tools for service and maintenance. So procurement happens across all the primary activities. In the same way, technology development also happens in all the areas. So wherever technology is like developed, which is implemented, it can be done across the primary activity. For example, in terms of inbound logistics, we could use technology like food grading machines or quality checking machines. In operations, we can have a sophisticated burger making or a bun making bakery setup. Or in outbound logistics, we could have used technology like tracking where the food delivery guy is going. In marketing sales, we can have an app, okay, or we can have a website. So in these ways, technology development is throughout the primary activities. In the same way, all the departments here require human resources. So that human resources is about the human resource management. So what is firm infrastructure? Firm infrastructure is something which is across the company. So any activity which cannot be classified effectively under these can be classified under firm infrastructure. So you can read about the support activities here. You can pause and read it. You can also read it here about the procurement and human resource management. You can read about the technology development and infrastructure here. So infrastructure in detail, these are companies' support systems and the functions that allow it to maintain daily operations. So anything that cannot be classified into any of the primary or supportive activities, they come under the infrastructure. So these are essential services to run the company. So something like accounting, legal, administrative, general management are examples of necessity infrastructure that businesses can use to their advantage. So through this picture, you will get a nice idea about how the entire value chain works. So you can have a look at it. So now we will move on to the Porter's value network. So what Porter says is, see, assume that this is your company. You have a value chain. Okay. If you have a value chain, what happens? Your cost goes down. Okay, because you're only doing the value adding activities. So your cost actually goes down. Because your cost goes down, your profit is higher. So that is a very simple kind of a logic. Assume your suppliers are also using the value chain. okay, and your distributor is also using the value chain. The your buyer, okay, your buyer something like B2B, he tells you an example of B2B, business to business sale. So even your buyer has a value chain. So it effectively means that the entire network of companies in your business are using the value chain. Okay, it's only for your business. Okay, for your competitor, he might have a following value chain or he might not. Okay, so if we take a company like this, we take Maruti Suzuki, a car manufacturing company. His supplier is following value chain, his distributor is following value chain, the showroom is also following value chain. See, because of all them are following the value chain, all the company's cost will be lower. So all of them can together pass the lower cost to the customer by reducing price. That they can do it and capturing market share. So they can do this, or all of them can enjoy a higher margin using that profit for future development. They can use that profit. So when a network of companies are like following value chain, it's called as value network. So what's the benefit? On the other hand, we'll assume that Hyundai is not following the value chain. Okay, his supplier, his distributor, his showroom are not following value chain. So what would happen? Thus comparatively higher cost will be, they will be like having a comparatively higher cost, suffering from the lower cost of Maruti Suzuki as it has a reduced price and captures market share. So when we can equate this point and this point, okay, if Maruti Suzuki is going to choose this option, then Hyundai will suffer with this option, or if Maruti Suzuki uses this option, Hyundai will suffer with this option. Fear that Maruti Suzuki might use higher profits for future development and becoming a threat. So I think you will get you got a nice idea about how value network works. So what you do is you pause the video, okay, you go to Google and search for a mobile phone called as OnePlus mobiles. Okay, you try to find out what is the value chain. So you know now what is a value chain theory now. So you try to find out what heading will come under inbound logistics, what are the aspects of OnePlus mobile will come under operations, what aspects come under outbound. Like that, you try to search about OnePlus mobiles, get some articles and try to fit those information into this value chain. Okay, so it might be an exercise. In an exam, what they do is they give you a lengthy case. From that lengthy case, you have to find out which paragraph refers to inbound, which one refers to outbound, which is operation. Like that you can find. Usually what they do is they usually give a company which is like doing certain things wrongly here and there in their primary activities. So you have to tell a suggestion like where they are wrong and how they have to improve. So that's what they usually ask in a value chain question. You can reach me at my website wowacademics.com, or you can also see my Quora answers. I am active in LinkedIn and in Facebook page. So you can visit at these places. If you just type Sham Prasad and Wow Academics, you will get all these links in Google search itself. And if you like this video, give a like, share to your friends, and if you feel that any points we have missed in this video, you can post it. We will try to give an answer to you in the comment section itself, or we'll also create another video for you. So thank you for watching our video.